Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. Now, that kind of talk this week dragged Australia's share market to a two-year low. There are, of course, complex reasons for that.
He was the big spender. The big spender.
Doing the grocery shopping can take a huge chunk out of the family budget.
And that's finance.
Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. We demystify the world of money and help you get a handle on the bigger picture. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Yeah, g'day Adam. How you going?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thomas, have you bought me a present yet this year for Christmas? It'll be here before you know it.
Right, yeah, I should get onto that. Thanks for the reminder.
Well, if you are looking for a present, Thomas, for a loved one, i.e. me, or just a nice stocking filler, or even a treat for yourself, then check out the Equity Mates Get Started Investing book. It is available online at Booktopia and at all good bookshops. So perhaps keep that in mind when you're shopping, Thomas. It's not much. I don't know. I don't know the price, but I think I'm worth it.
Oh, it's reasonable. I mean, you don't read those, so we'll need the Audible version.
This is true, yeah. But I do often have things that I need to raise up slightly. So it will definitely come in handy. It is a good read. It is a good read. Definitely I recommend that one. A massive show coming up as we bid hooroo to Deliveroo. Customers are left wondering just who their next meal is coming from. The UK had another mini budget. Did the Prime Minister survive this one? Who even is the Prime Minister anyway? And the FIFA World Cup in Qatar is having an impact on liquidity, and I'm not just talking about the lack of beer. But first, Thomas, we've got pages of wages. What did we learn?
Well, it comes in 3 stages.
Oh man, it goes on for ages.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, we had two data points last week from the labour market, the two sort of big ones. We got unemployment rate and our quarterly look at wages. Unemployment rate dipped back down to 3.4% in October. So total jobs up 32,000, which was a decent result. But yeah, basically, I mean, the monthly labour force data chops around a bit. So the story there is we're holding at 3.4%.
Do we have a target band for unemployment like we have for inflation?
No, we don't.
It wouldn't be a good look, would it?
No,
for the government to have a target band. We really want to see it up around 10% of the country unemployed. That's when we're happy.
Yeah.
We're doing everything we can. We're pulling out all the stops to get rid of jobs.
So no, the labour market remains very tight. I saw another interesting data point where it looked at the number of job openings as a percentage of the labour force. And typically that's around 1 to 1.5%. But since COVID, it's jumped up to around 3.5%, and it's been holding there. Yeah, so a lot of open jobs.
Right.
A lot of jobs going, not a lot of people to fill them. The basic story there. So yeah, very tight still.
So you got to question what the 3.4% of people are doing then. So many jobs open. Get out there and work. That's what we're saying?
No. There's a number of vacancies as a share of the labour force is at 3.5%.
Oh, as a share of the labour force.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But 3.4% people are unemployed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it takes a while to find a job.
I'm just trying to get you to say something controversial.
Right.
No, I understand. Some of these jobs are hard.
Yeah.
Might be a lot of job openings for doctors. As much as Barry would love to give it a crack, I'm not sure that's where we need to be as a society.
So labour market's been very tight for most of the year. We've got wages for the September quarter. They came out at 1% in the quarter, which was higher than expected, 3.1% over the year, a bit higher than expected as well. First time annual wages are above 3% since 2013. So that was seen as a pretty strong number, but it's not that strong. It's not really.
No, I was going to say, because inflation's what?
Close
8?
to 7. Yeah.
7? So it's
that's
it's
right.
never going to be, I don't even think we can talk about it being a strong number of wages growth.
When
if
real
it's
wages
still
are falling
trailing
4%.
Yeah, it's trailing inflation by 8%. I mean, cracking number if this is 10 years ago. Right, great job.
Yeah.
Smashed it.
Yeah.
Well, we're on point. We're right on track with inflation at 2 to 3%. Target band, we've got wages roughly 3%. Just killing it, RBA.
But yeah, no.
Well, what's the RBA got to do with wages? Anything? They've got the interest rates.
Yeah, they think about it a lot. Well, I mean, the thing is, so the RBA reckons that you can have wages growing at sort of around 3.75 to 4% is consistent with inflation in the target band of 2 to 3%. So wages growth up to 4% isn't a problem as far as the RBA is concerned. So wages at 3.1 is definitely not a problem. So it probably means that, there's nothing there that the RBA is going to be worried about at all. And because the other thing is, like, September was really the quarter where you would have expected wages to pop, because you had the Fair Work Commission had the minimum wage review, and that handed down a pretty big number, 4.6 to 5.2%, depending on where you were in the spectrum. So that was big, and that's in this data. So that should have shown up. The immigration's only just starting to come back through this quarter. It's just come back, and that's kept the labour market tight. Like, I think I saw stats like this. The labour force is 430,000 people smaller than it would have been if the pandemic hadn't interrupted immigration.
Right.
So there's a big drop in the labour force, which is why the labour market's so tight. That extra expanded workforce would put downward pressure on wages. So immigration starting to come back. That should help the labour market soften, but that hasn't started just yet. The RBA's rate hikes hadn't really taken effect in the September quarter. They're just sort of starting to work their way through the system. Right. And September quarter is normally your busiest quarter for wage adjustments. It's normally when a lot of awards roll over, and that flows through to other sectors. And typically, September is when most companies, I don't know about most, but that's your busy quarter for wage adjustments. Right. So you really should have seen a big number. If you were going to see a big number in wages, it would have been this quarter. But we didn't. We saw 3.1%, which is whatever. So, that suggests there's no evidence of a wage price spiral in Australia. Like, wages are not getting out of hand. Wages are not feeding through into inflation. We don't need to be worried about wages driving up inflation. There's just no evidence of that in the data.
Okay. So does that mean that inflation then is out of hand? Like it's just run away doing its own thing?
A little bit. It more means it's still mostly driven by supply shocks and energy prices. Right. That's what it is. And so it's not self-perpetuating yet. Okay. And that's the worry that the central banks have. If they leave it for too long, it becomes self-perpetuating, and then it just goes and goes and goes. On this data, with wages at 3.1%, as soon as those supply shocks work through the system, inflation should just come straight back down.
Oh, easy.
That's what that means, yeah. Which then means that there's no real need to stomp on demand by jacking up interest rates.
Right.
That makes sense?
Hear that, Phil? It's enough with the interest rates.
Yeah, we know you're listening.
Right. So you thinking like the next RBA meeting that they won't raise rates? Is that, or is it get a little bit longer to play out?
Yeah, I think they're probably a bit committed, but I probably reckon one more in December and then possibly done.
Right, possibly done.
Possibly done. Yeah. Because you also got Seek, the job agency Seek. Yeah. They publish a advertised salary index, and that's rolled over. So that was up around showing 4.4, 4.5. That's now under 4, clearly, 3.7. So it's clearly rolled over.
What is that? 4 point something percent of job? Is that the job openings?
No, that's the salary index. So the advertised salary index. So they take all the salaries, the pay scales advertised on the jobs on the platform. Yeah. And create an index.
I just have no reference for the 4 number, 4 point whatever.
4.4%. That's a growth rate. That's what they're saying there.
I gotcha. Okay. That's what I'm missing.
Yeah, right. Sorry, yeah.
All right.
Go back to ignoring you.
Well, in this case, You didn't say percent. So I was like,
Right,
I didn't know if it was just a number that Seek had come up with. Maybe they had an index of some kind. They're like,
I get, yeah. I
four jobs available.
There's no wages pressure. It's not a story. It doesn't look like. So in that sense, you know, it feels like we're kind of back to sort of something neutral. With, like, everyone's worried about a recession in 2023. If that's the worry, like let's ease off the rate hikes and just see how it flows.
Yeah, right. Because like that sounds like we're headed towards smooth sailing, but everyone's still talking about recessions. So like the way you're sort of framing it, and, you know, the way I'm hearing it is like, we're good now. We're like, you know, wages are kind of about where we want them to be. Inflation's high, but it's going to start coming down. Like we can just kind of soft landing. Nailed it.
I think on this data at least, it suggests, we're kind of looking to nail that soft landing.
Right. We land this baby on an aircraft carrier the way we're going. Skinny little dirt road in a field, 200 metres long, touchdown.
We might land that soft landing, but the real problem, I think, for the Australian economy is like, when does wages ever grow? You know, if you've got unemployment at 3.4%, inflation in the 7s, and wages is growing at 3.1%, when do you ever get decent wage growth? Like, if it's not now, then when is it? And so I think there's something, I don't know, structurally wrong with the way the labour market's constructed at the moment. And maybe it's, you know, I think, it's just Labor's bargaining power has been eroded over the years to a point now, which I think is kind of problematic. It means we're seeing big falls in living standards. Real household income is going to have the biggest fall since the 1990s recession based on the budget projections, because the inflation's eating into the spending, plus real wages are going down. It's worse than the 1990s recession in terms of household disposable income. Like, that's not a great outcome. Like, I feel like there's something problematic there that needs addressing.
I reckon you could turn that into a chant on the protest march. Like, if not now, when? You know, that kind of cool response. Like, you know, get out there. What do we want? Wages growth. If not now, when? You know, that kind of. I'll be there. I'll be probably live streaming it. But you have my support. All right, Thomas, what happened to Deliveroo?
Deliveroo is Deliverooted. So, I can do puns too.
Deliver screwed.
The Australian operations has gone into voluntary administration. So they're just winding it up. There's 120 staff getting laid off, 15,000 riders that work, and 12,000 restaurants are going to be affected by it.
So they were all. It was all push bikes, wasn't it? Deliveroo.
Yeah, I think so.
Mostly, like where I think they just had lots of pedal powered bikes roaming the cities.
That's the images. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, definitely all the images of them is people on bikes with big boxes.
Going to make it tough when it comes to selling off the assets, then, isn't it? It's not a lot of money in second-hand bikes.
With big boxes on them.
With big boxes on them.
One thing I didn't realise, I always thought Deliveroo was an Australian company, but they're set up in London, backed by Amazon, listed on the London Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
They're just cashing in on the Australian image, kangaroo.
Yeah, like coat of arms animal, no less. They've gone right to the top.
Yeah, we should have got a licensing fee from them in the WTO.
Well, I reckon, yeah. Yeah, if you're going to use our national emblem animal, you know, what's next? Deliver emu? Where does it stop?
I suppose it's England. Like, what are they going to do? Deliver badger? Not a lot of inspiring animals in the UK.
Shoot us an email, cve@equitymates.com, if you can come up with an inspiring English animal. We're getting into the World Cup now, so I'm starting to get excited and get a bit patriotic and a bit sort of, very much as I did when the Cricket World Cup was on 2 weeks ago, and as I will for the next Sporting World Cup. Anyway, we're going to talk World Cup later on. So what happened to Deliveroo?
The global company just pulled the pin on Australian operations.
Right.
Australia accounts for 3% of their company revenue, and we're just saying, it's just not worth it. They've done this as well in Germany, Taiwan, Spain, and the Netherlands. Just shut down operations. They're saying it's not working. To make the Australian business financially viable required a big investment, and the risk reward just didn't stack up. It just wasn't going to work. And I think mostly because it's just become really competitive. Like you've now got Uber Eats, Menulog, DoorDash, and Deliveroo all competing for a pie that's shrinking pretty quickly with the end of COVID.
Yeah.
Like all of these delivery businesses made sense and stacked up when with COVID and everyone at home. I think you had two factors driving this. You had COVID and everyone at home, so there's a big uptick in demand for this service. Plus, you had super cheap money and a lot of money flowing to tech, and so it was easy to something like Deliveroo to go, like we're a tech player, we've got good systems, and everyone's stuck at home, and we've got easy access to cheap cash.
Yeah.
Now, the total market size is shrinking. I think they're getting slapped around by Uber Eats. Uber Eats has 56% of the market in Australia.
Oh, right.
So they're far and away the most dominant player. Yeah, and
not to mention they might be getting beat out a bit by walk to the shops, which in times of high inflation, sometimes I prefer, instead of getting Uber Eats or DoorDash, to just walk to the shops and buy my food.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's kind of it's kind of retro, but
yeah.
But is inflation a thing here too? Like, so with discretionary spending, it's one thing to get takeaway. It's probably another thing to go, well, I'm going to get it delivered to my house for an extra fee.
When inflation's high, the typical sort of rule of thumb I think about, when inflation's high and it's eating into household budgets, which we know that it is, that there's a bit of a pivot away from ready-made meals and fast food to Woolworths and Coles. That's why those consumer staples tend to be a bit recession-proof in a sense, because they pick up extra demand as people cut back their discretionary spending. They've still got to eat. You can't get around that. But you either drop a lot of money on a takeaway meal delivered, or you go and make something from the shop. So that's what's happened to them. So the market share is shrinking. Because people are getting out and about, and they've got less disposable income, and it's just a really competitive market. And so Deliveroo's just gone, nah, it's just not worth it. We can't make it work. We're out. So
what happens to... Because I know Deliveroo they've had a few issues in the past, not the least of which was... Did you catch their April Fool's gag this year, where they sent a fake invoice to all of their customers going, you just ordered 30 pizzas. It was pretty much a phishing attack. And then people took to Twitter and everything, just completely outraged, going, why have you billed me for 30 pizzas I didn't order? And they were like, April Fools. What are you guys, insane?
That is the least creative April Fool's Day joke I could imagine doing with a delivery platform.
Fake invoice.
A fake invoice, that's pretty...
Like a fake
It's not even clever. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe they thought, because the opposite would be you've won free pizza, click here and then you've got the disappointment of finding out you haven't won free pizza. So maybe they thought, well, why don't we start low? We'll start with the disappointment of you've accidentally ordered 30 pizzas, and then people will be like, what? I didn't order 30 pizzas? Excellent. I don't know. The marketing team maybe has some answers. There's been a lot of industry pressure, and it's not just on Deliveroo, but on everyone, hasn't there? Around wages and whether they're the riders or the whatever are actually employees, or if they're not, and what kind of awards and pay. That's got to take its toll on all of these organisations too, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Uber's getting on the front foot with this. So that Uber and I think Menulog I have to check that. Definitely Uber signed an agreement with the Transport Workers Union to sort of push forward and try to bring some sort of certainty to the gig economy work, and saying like, it's flexible work, it's designed to be that, but doesn't mean you can be without protections. So they got on the front foot. Deliveroo hadn't done that. They'd been tied up in courts because they fired someone a couple of years ago because he wasn't delivering fast enough, and they just cut him out of the app, said, no, you're out. And he's oh man, I'm kind of, for all intents and purposes, I am an employee. I wear your jacket, I ride your bike. You tell me where to go.
He's wearing a company uniform. Sorry, mate, I can't see. I don't know how you got the idea that you work for us. Just because you've got a Deliveroo helmet on and you're wearing a Deliveroo jacket and a Deliveroo shirt and you're riding a bike that says Deliveroo.
Yeah, and when you rock up, you're instructed to say, hi, I'm from Deliveroo. I'm in the court case.
When you answer your phone, you have to say, Deliveroo, Jared speaking.
Yeah, right. But no, they're independent contractors. I mean, the court ruling on it was just stupid. Like the judge handing down judgment said, like, obviously, for all intensive purposes, they are employees and they act like employees. But the High Court says that we should not look at that. We should only look at the contract. And based on the contract, they're subcontractors. They're independent contractors. So that's where it ends. So that's what happened to that guy, which the Transport Workers Union was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that was sort of happening, and Uber got on the front foot on that. Deliveroo was a bit behind the ball. They did say that wasn't a factor in deciding. It was more that they just got, the competition was too hot and they couldn't handle it. They didn't point the fingers at that, but possibly would have been a factor.
Well, it's no surprise that Uber got there first. They're driving cars. Deliveroo. All right, why don't we pause here? We'll grab a word from this week's sponsor. Be back with more Comedian versus Economist right after this. Welcome back here on Comedian versus Economist. We'd love it if you gave the show a rating and left a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the show this year, then think of it as your Christmas gift to us. It would really help us out. Thomas, we're talking UK inflation, and they had a mini budget. What's going on with their mini budget this time? Who lost their job this time round?
No, it's gone down okay. I love that the Economist Magazine said it wasn't a great budget, but at least it was sane.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's the benchmark in the UK now. They deliver a sane budget.
I think this is a bit of a trend, because it's a bit like when Joe Biden came in. He couldn't kind of lose if he just stayed sane. Do you know what I mean? Like, as long as he just kind of went, I'm just going to be a normal president and I'm just going to do normal presidential things, then even if his policies weren't totally spot on, it was still better than what had just happened. So I think after chaos, if you can just come in and be a bit normal.
You know what? I'm not going to overthrow democracy. That's central plank of my platform. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just not going to overthrow democracy.
Yeah. I thought about inciting a riot and storming the steps of the White House. But then I thought, no. Yeah.
They definitely learnt from experience. The Tories in the UK. So the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, he's the new Treasurer, handed down a mini budget. Well, it wasn't a mini budget, it was an autumn statement.
Oh, an autumn statement.
Yes, yeah.
I love it. So he's distancing himself already from the mini budget because
I mean, it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
2 mini budgets in 3 months.
Yeah. So it's the autumn statement.
Yeah, so open with, aren't the leaves lovely this time of year? The
autumn colours. What was in his autumn statement?
Well, whereas the last mini budget that killed Liz Truss's prime ministership, they were promising to lift spending and cut taxes. This one went, see where they went wrong. We're going to lift taxes and cut spending.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, £25 billion worth of higher taxes and cuts to government programs of $30 billion.
Right.
Bit of a shift in tone.
Is this? I've heard the phrase austerity budget getting bandied around. Is this an austerity budget? And what is an austerity budget?
Well, yeah, an austerity budget is a budget that cuts back on spending when it's not really a good time to cut back on spending. So it's a bit interesting in the UK at the moment. Like, it seems that the UK is already in recession. That's what Jeremy Hunt said when he made this statement, saying, "Yeah, we've already had one quarter. It looks like we've got a second quarter baked in. We're in recession." So typically, like the Keynesian school of thinking around that is like when there's a fall in demand and you've got a recession, you want your government to step in and sort of like prop things up a bit and spend a bit of money and get things going again. An austerity budget sort of says like, no, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you think of like the classic is Greece in recent history, like when the Greek debt crisis happened. Then they had austerity budgets imposed upon them, even though the economy was tanking and it was down, GDP was down 20%. They were being forced to sell off all their assets and raise taxes and cut spending.
Right.
Yeah, and it's controversial because it's hard to see where austerity budgets have really worked well, particularly in a crisis. Like, by the time you're in a crisis, an austerity budget there's no historical precedence where you say, yep, that really worked. That helped that economy get out of trouble. So that's what we've got in the UK at the moment. I mean, the other part of that story is inflation's running at 11.1%. So inflation's very high, and something needs to be done to get that under control. You do have the Bank of England raising rates. They rose 75 basis points at their last meeting at the beginning of the month. 8 increases in a row now for them. So they're trying to tackle inflation. But but that said, it was very it was clearly with an eye to the markets and avoiding getting pummeled by it.
How did the markets react? Did they like it?
Kind of meh, whatever.
Meh. Oh, we got a new reaction from the markets.
Yeah.
Because we've had what and hooray, but now we've got meh. Right. I'll add that to the list.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't care.
Yeah, not much. I mean, because there wasn't really much in it. Like, I mean, it sort of basically just came out and said we care about the budget position. Like, whereas the previous budget came out and said, we don't care about the budget position. We're going to keep spending and we're going to keep borrowing. And even though it seems like a really dumb idea to keep doing that, given that inflation's already off the hook, we're just going to keep doing it. And markets went, wow, what are you guys even doing? This one's like, it's what you'd expect a government to be doing and with the current settings.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Not so many surprises there, yeah.
While we're talking about this, we had got Akash sent us a message at CVE Podcast on Instagram. He's got a couple of questions, and I thought this would be a good time to bring them in. He's just asking, number one, the whole world is facing the risk of a recession. So in the past couple of years, didn't a single leader think of doing things differently? And I'll ask the second question as well. Second question is, it's common knowledge, I think, the money loses its value if handed out almost free, and yet all the central banks kept doing it in the last few years. Not a single central bank boss thought about the repercussions. So you kind of combine those two into the same sort of thing, I think, can't you? And so no leaders sort of saw all of this coming. I mean, we've talked about MMT in the past.
I mean, you got to put yourself back where we were in March 2020 and those early days. Like the chief medical officer was coming out and saying that Australia should prepare for 50,000 dead from COVID.
Yeah,
we haven't even come close to that. So it really looked like things were collapsing at a rapid pace. And so the government, so on the fiscal side, governments really stepped in and went like, okay, let's prop this up, let's fill this gap. Like JobKeeper in Australia and all of that. In hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, they overclocked it. It was too much, given that the shock was much less than we were expecting based on the medical advice. I mean, everyone was doing their best. We just didn't know what. It's a whole new story. So governments try to rush in and plug that gap in demand, and they overclocked it, but it was probably proportionate to the shock that we were expecting. We didn't get that shock, but compared to what we were expecting, it was probably about right.
It continued on for a fair while into it, though, didn't it? Like once we Did we get a sense that the shock wasn't as bad as we thought, yet governments still kept printing money and they still kept giving out money? I think to Akash's point, he also makes the point that it sounds like a scheme that was hatched by top leaders of the world to give free money to big businesses. But it did have that feel at various stages throughout. But I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the mix. I think it was probably that we're trying to save the economy, and if that ends up giving big business lots of money, then we're okay with that.
Yeah. And it was a lack of governance, if anything. Like, it was like, well, we're just going to give it out without really asking for anyone to tell us how they're spending it or how it's benefiting anybody. They just kind of...
JobKeeper was completely unaccountable. It was, pretty gross. Yeah, but like, so that's that. And then also like on the inflation side, like with the central banks, like kind of as we're saying, like it's still, like in Australia, inflation's all about supply shocks and energy prices. It's not there in demand yet. It's not there in wages getting out of control. So it's not clear to me that the inflation that we've got right now is money printing driven.
Right.
You know, like it probably is to some degree and sort of the cash handouts and that sort of thing. But it's not clear to me that it's a demand problem. You know,
and what about the UK? What about the UK's at 11%? Is that energy crisis or energy prices? I
definitely think it's part of it. It's probably Brexit in there as well, who's pushing up costs.
Oh, you reckon? Is that still going? Didn't they do that already?
Yeah. It's still playing out.
Really?
There we go. Yeah. Still, it's transitioning.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but I think it's a reasonably common story, and you know, it's part of the mix, but it's not like in terms of like, did the central banks massively muff it up? I don't think so. I think it was, you know, given the shock that we were expecting, I think it was proportionate. And it's also not clear to me how much of the current inflation that we've got is due to that excess money printing versus how much is due to the supply shocks. And because I think because once you whack energy prices, energy is a cornerstone commodity of the entire economy. It feeds through into everything. So it's definitely, you know, it's an empirical question about how that breaks down. Like, you know, our 7%, how much of that's demand driven and how much of it is supply shocks. But I would think the bulk is supply. That'd be my feeling.
I read a fun fact the other day, and I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. I'm not sure if it's true. But given the energy prices, the return on investment on solar now is down to like 3 years instead of 10 years or whatever it was before. Like, it's significantly come down because we've been umming and ahhing about solar for ages. And then, I read that the other day. And I'm like, maybe that's not the worst thing to buy at the moment. If you, I don't know. That's just my own musings. All we need now is the bloody sun to come out. That'd be nice. It's only halfway through November and it still feels like winter here in Adelaide. I don't know about how the rest of the country is going, but it's freezing. Well, hopefully that's answered Akash's question. Feel free to send us a message at CVE Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. All right, finally today, Thomas, apparently the World Cup has an impact on liquidity. What are we talking about here? Yeah,
so the World Cup's kicked off in Qatar.
The Soccer World Cup, that is, in case you're not aware. FIFA World Cup, yep. I'm not sure if we're even allowed to say these words. Like, I think that, like, sponsorship deals are so tight that you need a license just to utter the words FIFA World Cup.
Really?
Or Soccer World Cup. Yeah, you probably got to call it, like, right now we're talking about the big football festival happening in the Middle East. Still, you know, come after us, FIFA. Bring it. What do you got? You're in a rabble at the moment. But there's research out of Monash University looked at what happens to equity markets when the World Cup's on during trading hours. Right.
They did a big study, looked at 95 matches across 24 markets. And what they found, probably, you know, not super surprisingly, is there's a lot less trading during the game. So 29%. So trading's 29%. Trading volumes are 29% below average during a game.
Right.
But then they spike in the halftime break and also in the half hour before kickoff. Half hour before kickoff, they're up 22% as people try to fill their trades before the game begins.
I mean, we often talk on this show, and if you listen to Equity Mates at all, investing is not like gambling. But this does sound a hell of a lot like getting your bets on before kick-off. And maybe a cheeky half-time, full-time wager or something. It only affects the markets of the country who's involved, or is it any World Cup game?
No. So in the country that's competing in the game.
Right.
So like if France is playing and the French share market is open.
I hope this didn't catch anyone out trying to trade on the Quito Stock Exchange in Ecuador last night.
The Quito.
That's what it's called. That's the Ecuadorian Stock Exchange, is the Quito Stock Exchange.
Yeah, right. Sounds like a Pokemon. Saying watch out for that. Liquidity dries up a bit during the games. If we don't have to worry about it in Australia. I don't think I've got any games happening inside trading hours of the ASX. But
no, in fact, I think Australia will be playing as this podcast is released. So Wednesday morning, about 5:30 my time, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. I will be definitely getting up for that. But ASX won't be open. Slackers, probably watching the game. So what does it mean? How can we profit from this newfound knowledge?
Well, the guy heading up the study. I've lost his name now, but he was saying that.
I'm sure he only put like 12 months worth of research and hard work into it. This is my crowning achievement. This study. This is going to put me on the map. First podcast talking about it. I forget his name, but anyway, he did a study.
But no, he's saying like with the bump in liquidity at the start. So if you've got a big trade that you're trying to unwind and you don't want to, knock the price by with your big trade, you can disguise it in that jump in liquidity at the start.
Right.
It's one way you could use it to your advantage. Or you're saying like if people are selling during the game, it means they might be willing. They probably need to sell, so you might be able to pick yourself up a bargain, buy cheap.
They need to sell because they probably dropped a gorilla on the Socceroos. So you said there was a spike in trading volume during halftime as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There might be people enjoying the corporate package as well at the lunch in between, because they're the only ones who can get the beers too. Did you see that? That Qatar's banned selling beers at the stadium.
Right. Yeah, and Budweiser is like the FIFA sponsor.
Oh, it's a mess.
$100 million deal to be the sponsor now. That
Budweiser is the official contracted beer supplier to FIFA at all of its official FIFA events. And 2 days before the World Cup kicks off, the Qatar organising committee, whoever it was, came out and were like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're not going to sell alcohol at the stadiums anymore. So it's going to be beer free at the stadiums. There will be riots. Mark my word. Like I don't know if you've seen the fan zones where they do sell beer. There's fan zones which are like still under construction as people are arriving.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I imagine. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, again, I don't want to hang shit on the English, but once the English get there, there's no beers. I'm sure we've all seen the football riots before. Oh man, I mean, it's a bit sad. Like on one hand, like it's pretty frustrating because it's 2 days before kickoff and then you announce it. Like, so people have booked their tickets, they've already made their travel plans and accommodation. They're going there with certain expectations. And I know that it's, I think it's one of the sheiks who's in charge was kind of like, no, this goes against, this is not what we do here in Qatar. It doesn't align with our values. So, and you can respect that. But I think 2 days before kickoff, after you've said to FIFA, who said to Budweiser, yeah, it's on. Like, imagine ordering like kegs and kegs for your party, and then your mum and dad like, for your 18th birthday or something, and your mum and dad like, sorry, we can't serve beers.
Let's get Jono to take it back. Take it back.
Yeah, but it's also kind of sad because I think we should be able to host a sporting event without alcohol. Like, it shouldn't need to have alcohol. Like, I went to England versus India here at the Adelaide Oval for the semi-final of the T20 World Cup. and sat among the Indian fans, and by and large weren't drinking at all. Like there was barely a drink between them, and the atmosphere and the fun was just like, it was infectious. It was just like everyone was having a great time, and it wasn't because they were all drunk. I mean, yeah, and I was having a great time. I mean, admittedly, I was drunk as 10 men, but I did.
But I've got to do some heavy lifting here.
I just had to yeah. I was getting sore shoulders from carrying everybody. Yeah. So, but no, I think it would be. Maybe it'll be like a revelation. Maybe at the end of it, it'll be like, wow, that was actually really good and really a really positive thing, and maybe it changed the future of sport. But who knows?
Yeah. It is soccer though. I do think you do want to be altered.
Come on, man. The Socceroos kick off in literally less than 2 days. You got to get on board here. All right. You can still get Bud Zero. They're going to try and sell zero alcohol beer inside the stadiums instead. Not sure that's I don't think that's going to placate the hordes of travelling English as they arrive. It's okay, lads. I got zeros. Yeah. Terrible English accent. All right, why don't we leave it there? That does us for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoy all the shows. Look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye for now.
You have been listening to an Equity Mates Media production. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes. Any advice is general advice only and has not taken into account your personal financial circumstances, needs, or objectives. Before acting on general advice, you should consider if it is relevant to your needs and read the relevant product disclosure statement. And if you're unsure, please speak to a financial professional. The hosts of this podcast and their guests may have positions in the companies mentioned. Equity Mates Media operates under an Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.